Serana is an evil vampire lord created directly by the worst, most evil daedric lord in the game. If you're playing as a morally good dragonborn, the objectively correct decision would be to kill her the second she steps out of that stone coffin. Now, I know Bethesda made it so you can't kill her, effectively making her your immortal vampire waifu, but today I'm going to prove why you should if you could. I know this video is going to make a lot of you angry, but let's try to focus on what's actually in the game instead of the feelings you project onto her because she's the only companion with half a brain in the entire game. So without further ado, here's 6 reasons you should kill Serana if you could. Reason number 1. She's a Molag Bal worshipper. I know a lot of people miss this, and I think some people even ignore this. When you travel with Serana, she's so much better than all the other companions in the game that you project your feelings onto her. Like, you thinking she wants to ditch the daedra who made her. But this is simply not true for Serana. Consider that in the base game, the version of Serana that made people fall in love with her, enough to make overhaul mods that change her completely, Serana actually likes Molag Bal. If you tell her you hate daedric princes, she gets uncomfortable. The daedric princes disgust me.
I know, but just... Anyway.
If you tell her you admire her for worshipping Molag Bal, she reacts much more warmly. I admire your devotion.
Not many people understand the appeal. You keep surprising me.
And if you tell her that you too worship Molag Bal, she is actually impressed with you. I'm a follower of Molag Bal myself.
I have to admit I'm impressed. I didn't think you had the spirit for it.
She is devout enough to actually argue with the player about if you even suggest that maybe being a worshiper of the god of non-consent might have been an oversight.
I'm not sure it's really your place to judge me, to judge us. My family has its problems, but they're our problems. Let's just move on from here, okay?
And if you suggest that she cures herself, she tells you that there's no reason to do that at all. Do you ever think of curing yourself?
A cure? Why even think of it that way? I can't think of any reason I'd want to lose this gift, especially after what I did to get it. It may have driven my family apart, but I'm still here, and I'm alive. I won't give this up.
In fact, unless you select the right dialogue options at the right point in the story, she locks you out of even being able to bring up the idea that it's shameful to co-sign the actions of the Prince of Domination, Enslavements, and the Harvester of Souls. Over the years, it's become a generally accepted bit of lore that Serana is an unwilling victim, that she was unwillingly given by her father to Molag Bal as payment for his cursed eternal life. But this is not the case. Now, Serana was young, and there's absolutely no way to balance the idea that she was somehow a consenting equal in the relationship she had with Molag Bal. I'm not trying to say that she wasn't taken advantage of here, but listen to what she actually says about it. Listen and ask yourself, was this person an unwilling participant? Or was it just a bad time, and she wishes that it hadn't been a bad time? You ask her, how did you actually become a vampire then?
The ceremony was... degrading. Let's not revisit that. But we all took part in it. Not really wholesome family activity, but I guess it's something you do when you give yourselves to a daedric lord.
And before you say, this doesn't mean she was consenting, she actually makes it a point to bring up when somebody does not consent. When you're talking about vampirism, you say, I would guess it came from a daedric lord.
Exactly. The first vampire came from Molag Bal. She was not a willing subject, but she was still the first. Molag Bal is a powerful daedric lord, and his will is made reality. For those willing to subjugate themselves, he will still bestow the gift.
See, she specifically says that the ones who came after the first were willing to subjugate themselves. She knew. She worshipped the daedra on her own, and now that she has the power granted to her, she likes it. You might want her to be angry at this. You might want her to seek revenge on her father over this. You might want her to only go along with it because she's a living example of the sunk cost fallacy. But the truth is, those are your feelings. And if you associate them with her, it's because you are projecting your feelings onto her, not because she has them herself. She likes lording dominion over others. She likes bending the will of lesser beings into being slaves to her. She likes harvesting the souls of others. She likes being a worshiper of Molag Bal. You can only convince her to give all of that up if you choose every correct choice in the correct order to get the specific ending you want. It's not likely, and it's not easy. It's almost a kind of hidden ending, because in most endings, she goes happily on her way, being an ideal specimen for the kind of follower Molag Bal wants. For this to be different, you either have to rewrite her using mods, or project your own feelings onto her. Reason number 2. She's annoying. Every time I start to admire the number of unique responses Serana has to the world around her, I'm harshly reminded of one or more of her lovely generic responses.
I'm no fan of the sun, but it would be better than this.
Keep in mind that for most of her quest, you are forced to be her companion whether you like it or not. Anytime you enter a cave, she complains.
I'm okay with the dark, but I've spent more than my share of time in caves already.
If you are in the sun, she complains.
Let's move faster. The sun is... It's not great for my skin, if you know what I mean.
If you're in the snow, she complains.
This must be that beautiful Skyrim weather I've always heard about.
Sure, she will say things to comment on how beautiful the world is, but only when you're seeing something exceptional or rare. Imagine if you had a friend who would by default complain about everything you did with them, unless you were skydiving. I had a friend like this. We aren't friends anymore. Too annoying. Considering that most of Skyrim is killing Draugr in a cave, you're gonna spend most of your time with Serana listening to her complain. I mean, when you play Oblivion or Fallout 3 and you think to yourself, man, I wish the companions were more interactive, are you really hoping for one who just bitches at you the entire time that you're with them? And then there's the attacks. In the base game, Serana screws up the damage you do as a vampire, making it way lower than it should be whenever you're her companion. So, the whole time she forces her company on you, you basically can't do any damage as a vampire in the Vampire DLC. If you were hoping joining Castle Volkihar would let you live out your overpowered vampire fantasy, well, too bad. If you join the Vampire Clan, you'll spend most of your time in the main quest with all the weaknesses of the sun and none of the power that comes with being a vampire. Another issue is that Serana will interact with the world around her. In a game where companions will literally just stand silently by you doing nothing at all, this seems like a cool idea at first, and then you experience it for yourself. This is not immersion. Genuinely picture yourself experiencing what this is. Imagine going to a blacksmith in real life, and as you're haggling for prices, your friend just wanders off in the background and starts banging away at things she doesn't own. Or you go to the store, and she walks behind the counter and starts acting like a shopkeeper. Or you're hunting a powerful daedra in a house, and she just starts praying to it. This is not okay. If this happened, you would point out how antisocial it is and ask your friend to stop. Oh, and then there's the combat. People love to bring up how powerful Serana is, but she ends up being more of an average mage than anything else. The number of times we'll start a battle and a zombie chicken or goat or fox will come running to my aid because she'll summon literally any dead body from 3 miles around before conjuring something actually useful seemed disproportionate to the amount of dead chickens and other useless animals I remembered when I first played Skyrim. I genuinely think that Serana is a cut above most companions in the game, but I think it's time that we address that this is because of the lackluster, useless nature of the companions in Skyrim, and not because Serana is particularly useful. Her combat is mid. She's constantly touching other people's stuff and running around you when you're trying to talk to people, and she never stops complaining. Is this really what you think qualifies as the best companion in a game? Reason number 3. She represents an ever-multiplying plague. Normal vampires are as much a curse to their own existence as everyone else, but the higher vampires made by Molag Bal are an example of his influence in the world. They are little representatives of dominion everywhere they go. Even if you choose to go the Volkihar route in the story, the main conflict is no longer vampires taking over the world. It's just that vampires are so violent, they cannot allow rivalry among each other.
Well, before we spoke to my mother in the soul cairn, I would have said we bring the bow to my father. But after everything with her, I don't think we can trust him. I keep thinking that there's got to be another way, but he'll turn on us both the moment he gets the chance. No, he has to die. We have no choice.
And unfortunately for everyone, Molag doesn't keep the keys of creation to himself. Once one vampire's been created like Serana, she can make as many as she wants. Let's use an example. Let's just blame Harkon for this little court. One guy who chose to become a higher vampire now has a court of 13 named higher vampires, and usually about 5 unnamed higher vampires, plus you. If each vampire decided to make their own court of, let's just round it down to 15, well, do I need to explain how exponential growth works? Remember that story where some beggar asked a king to double the rice for every square on a chessboard? That story's famous because if you start with 2 grains of rice, then double it to 4 and on, and you do that for every square, 64 times, you end up with over 9 quintillion grains of rice. This is potentially what will happen if every vampire just made one more vampire. You know, like if you ask Serana to make you a vampire, she's doubling the number of vampires. If every vampire in Harkon's court made just one other vampire, sure, at first you'd only have 30, but then each of those would make one and you'd have 60, then 120, then 240, then 480, and on and on and on. If Serana was a cockroach, she'd represent an infestation, and you wouldn't risk leaving her alive so she can't breed. But she isn't a cockroach. She's the most powerful vampire in existence, and yet you're just supposed to let her, what, roam around and complain all day? She will be alive for an eternity after you die peacefully in your sleep. Even if you say she isn't evil, she's at least a vessel for evil. Once you realize that she lives forever, she becomes the definition of too dangerous to be left alive. Reason number 4. She actually doesn't have a problem with her father's plan. Remember that Valerica is the one who opposes Harkon, and she only does so because she's afraid of the blowback and wants to see him fail. Serana tells you that she thinks it's entirely possible that she only agrees with her mother because they spent so much time together. You can ask her, why did you ever agree to her plan?
Look, I loved my father, but when he found that prophecy, that became his life. Everything else, even me and my mother, we just became clutter. I was close with my mother, but she just kept feeding me her opinions of him, and eventually I started believing them.
She is entirely open to the idea of putting the plan into action. Now, look, I've seen a lot of people say that Harkon is an idiot for his plan, because if you block out the sun, all the plants will die, then all the animals will die, and then all the vampires will starve. First of all, this isn't a game where Blackreach exists, so life without the sun is entirely possible here. But then also understand that the sun is not a star in this universe. Magnus is a colossal tear in the fabric of the universe from when the architect of Nirn fled. You can literally use Ariel's bow in the game and carry out Harkon's plan, and the world does not end. Harkon's plan is logistically sound, but, well, that's kind of my point. You should not do Harkon's plan because it's wrong, not because it's impossible. You can use Harkon's plan, and Serana just hangs out, giving you her blood, co-signing whatever evil you want to enact on the inhabitants of Skyrim. Serana is not a good person, and the mom, Valerica, while she won't give you her blood, doesn't stop you either. No one in this DLC is the good guy, and it certainly isn't Serana. Reason number 5. She's okay killing humans. Remember that choosing the vampires is supposed to be the evil choice. When you reach Castle Volkihar, you aren't supposed to feel good about what you see. I mean, this place is more evil than the Dark Brotherhood, at least at first glance. These guys put the eating human beings alive area in their living room. That's not to mention the holding cell to keep the people fresh, or the fact that they throw the remains down a hole, and there's so much left over from those people that a random homeless person can live off the scraps. And what does Serana think of all this? Is she appalled? Grossed out? Does she scold her father? No, it's lunchtime. She's hungry. This is her house. If you beat the DLC with the vampires, you overthrow Harkon not because he's evil, but because he won't let you rise over him. No, Serana is perfectly happy to live with the stock of human being prisoners for eating. It's like she's just fine blocking out the sun for you or for her dad. Better that than being a little peckish. In fact, if you do convince her to change into a human, she doesn't say, "You're right, it would be nice to not have to eat people." No, she says,
It would be nice to not always be so thirsty.
yeah, Serana, I guess it would be nice to not be thirsty all the time. The world only exists in how it affects her, after all. Not a single one of these monsters is saying anything like, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't have to live like this. Maybe it's wrong to eat the mortals the way we do." Why don't they feel this way? Well, because again, they are a vessel for the god of dominion and slavery. This is what they are. Everything you see with your eyes in this DLC is meant to make you sick. You are supposed to take one look and say, yeah, these guys are evil. And then you join them if you want to also be evil. And one of these characters is none other than Serana herself, the only one that survives in every ending. Reason number 6. She's okay using humans as currency. As if the previous point wasn't enough, let's take it one step further, shall we? Maybe you're one of those people who says, you know, I'm okay with eating people, but I draw the line at torturing them for eternity. Well, good for you. I'm glad we cleared that up. You know who doesn't feel that way? Serana. I love when you get to the part where you go to the Soul Cairn, and Bethesda went out of its way to make this place as miserable as possible. No maps, enemies reincarnating everywhere, people crying, weeping, the realization that everyone you see is here forever with no hope of reprieve. And then you talk to Valerica and she's like, yeah, dude, the masters of this place are terrible. They somehow turn the souls of regular, everyday people into energy, and then they trade that with necromancers. All the while, they try to trick those same necromancers into trapping them too. You ask her, why would they require sustenance?
The ideal master's weakness is their insatiable hunger for pure souls. It's the reason for the Soul Cairn's existence, and the only leverage a necromancer has when bargaining with them.
And you're like, damn, that's crazy that they're so evil and callous towards life. Anyway, why are you here, Valerica? And she's like, oh, well, I'm a necromancer who was trading souls to these guys in exchange for power and got tricked. You ask her, how did you become imprisoned here?
When I entered the Soul Cairn, I had intended to strike a bargain with the ideal masters, the custodians of this place.
What was the bargain?
I requested refuge in the Soul Cairn, and in exchange, I would provide the ideal masters the souls that they craved. If I had foreseen the value they placed on my own soul, I would never have come here.
They tricked you.
The ideal masters unleashed their keepers and sent them to destroy me. Fortunately, I was able to hold them at bay and retreat into these ruins.
And does Serana say anything at all? I mean, besides wondering loudly when you can get the hell out of there, of course. Does she tell her mom it's absolutely wild to already have unlimited power, only to then sell human beings for a little bit more power? No, of course not. You just leave the Soul Cairn, head back to Tamriel, and she's off to the races, raising every corpse she can find, using soul-trapped weapons, and generally being the same necromancer her mom taught her to be. Genuinely, this DLC feels like a fever dream sometimes. This is like knowing a company that uses slaves to make chocolate, and then still buying their chocolate. Oh, wait, that's real. This is like knowing a company buys local water rights from small remote villages for like $30 per person, then bottles all the water until it runs dry, and still buying their water. Oh, wait, that's one's real too, sorry. This would be like knowing a company sent nurses to knowingly lie to pregnant mothers so they could make a buck or two off of selling them formula, knowing full well many of the mothers would watch their children starve to death as a result. Oh, damn, that one's real too. Maybe this DLC actually isn't that far-fetched of a depiction of evil after all. I guess this really does happen in real life.
And there it is, friends. The ugly truth.
6 reasons you should kill Serana, if you could. It might be difficult to admit, but the truth is this girl is very evil. She's bad to the bone. Realistically, the best thing for everyone would be to wipe them all off the face of Nirn. But what do you think? Is she cute enough to justify carrying the evil equivalents of the atomic bomb in the Elder Scrolls universe?
To help you remain tranquil in the face of almost certain death, smooth jazz will be deployed in 3, 2, 1.
I make Bethesda content, and I post every week. So if you like what you saw, let your vampire girlfriend suck your blood and subscribe. It really helps with the channel. Until next time, I'll see you around.